What happened here? I just drag him up and everything. Yeah, it was a workout for me. And this year, it's finally done. Yeah, I was actually really surprised. Like, can't you get the ball? I'm guys are heavy now. Just jump off. You're gonna hit a tree. Look at a tree. Just take the sacrifices. It was fun. How was yours? Yeah, it was.
That's a win.
Sorry. When he was 18. At the same time, all the cousins. You know, don't say I did on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's what we did earlier. I'm like, why? You make my job. I'd rather just go get the trash myself. You got like air mattresses. I'm like, I'm trying to figure that out. Oh, okay. We're actually my back. And then he cancels it.
Yeah, I had a bow tie on. It was so high, I was coming down to his collar. It's like I was like this.
Great. But I'm like, if you see it, just flip and do it.
I'm gonna go.
So after they all left, and just meet outside my office and you'll see this. It's right outside.
Nice. It was fun. It was so great.
I don't know. When the parents are coming, I don't know.
We got a 3D printer. And, yeah, and all I heard was the entire Bruce wanted to be
Yeah, he's gonna.
That's what that was. We're already like, Gabby's ready.
We went skiing a couple days, but we usually do a trip up to Missouri, but they haven't got it.
I'm like, I'm gonna choke you. I'm about ready to. I'm about ready to. So, well, when I have one in, and I was like, I prefer not having to do it, but yes. Can't do that when he's responded. I'm like, habits.
I have an 8 o'clock meeting.
You can call
We
me.
started off strong and then
Right outside my
they got
office,
this
or they're in my office, and then you'll see it.
and calls me,
Well, it's
After this meeting, I'm gonna go over there. I'm gonna call.
hey, you're about to kill me, but I'm taking tomorrow off to go snowboarding.
Especially in the situation.
And I was like, I can't take off.
Well, that's on my door.
So you're going by yourself? And he's like, no, it's a business. trip." I'm like, "Damn, but-"
So that means like you're going
He's not really a friend, but he was, because he's our age and I guess his wife's also a teacher. I don't know. Not right.
Well,
But
that's
they're,
a bummer.
No.
I know, she told me about it the next
Oh.
week.
yeah. I texted her and she's like, are you gonna be going this weekend? And I was like, well, Joe's going tomorrow. You better
I
not be
don't know,
going.
but I'm.
There's no heat.
But
He's got power.
I was trying to figure out who I realized it's
I
good.
just can't. And it's so nice. Well, it depends. You either get nice or you get, seriously. But it's
It could be a Julie's situation.
What's that?
Her day porter just came to me and said he's gotta take 6 weeks off.
Why? My son.
He's getting surgery.
Are you so young?
I'm breathing.
But he only has 20 hours a week.
You don't have any of these. What is store on these? I put these in your folder. I forgot to have these lined up.
Like she said, she's like, why do you have work? And I was just fine. So
Just sign. They just hold that file.
Sign, you just sign up and give them back.
You don't have any.
Oh, you didn't, I didn't know that. I wonder if it's.
He went to the doctor today.
that's just as bad, if not worse.
No.
Shelley did. I forget the word he used. He's like, we don't stand a chance against her.
No. Yeah. I'll double check that. No, it's, I don't know.
Been there, done that twice. I would let her go. You like it.
Socialist network.
What is it?
They died laughing when they heard his.
Yeah.
First thing that pops in my head, doesn't it look like something like blood? It's right outside my office.
Today just won't end, man.
I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was returning.
I do, thank you.
He said that he doesn't like to be one until this week.
I didn't realize that until like. How do I get along?
I save it and I go to what?
It's gonna be exciting. We're gonna have to do everything on it.
Smart. Just take that out.
Didn't set up or whatever.
So I asked Matt.
No, I hear
He's gonna have 2 other rooms on campus.
exactly how I feel. So I'm sorry. But I know.
Good evening, all. Welcome to tonight's meeting. If you are able, would you please stand with me for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, moving right along. Item number 4 is adoption of tonight's agenda. If I could get a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Number 5 is call of the public. Do we have any comments? All right, we'll move on then. Item number 6 is our information and discussion items. 6A, superintendent's report. I haven't, I'm trying to get there.
And Julie, Billy, do we have student council coming?
I saw Leah walking through the gym when I came down here. So I don't know.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get started then, because otherwise I'd have had her go. So
Okay.
Get her wrap up, yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Alrighty. So we have, I will mark the page here. So I wanted to, of course, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff going on since we've been like out of school half the time since the last meeting. But a couple of things that I know, Marcia, you went to the ASBA Winter Conference. Anything in particular you wanted to share with us?
Well, most of all the sessions I went to basically talked about supporting the kids and how important family support is to our kids. We say that we see a big difference in children that get the support at home. We know there's split families and everything else, but if they get that support, it really, their grades are higher, their self-esteem is higher, everything works together for those kids. So that was the big thing. And the one speaker that we had in one of the sessions, he just amazed me. He had been through a broken home and his life was really tough. And what he decided to do in his life, turn things around, it just brought tears to your eyes. So anyway, I just want to say, you know, how the support of teachers are a big part of our kids' lives. But we get the parents and the teachers working together. We can raise really good kids in our community.
So I asked the administrators and directors not to include their goals this time since they're so busy working on budget things. So if you have any questions, the goals have been in the packet and the updates all the way along. If you have any questions or want some information before our February meeting, I would encourage you just to reach straight out to that director or to that administrator for some updates. I know that we did a benchmark testing before we went to break, and I reviewed all of our K3 reading scores to see how kids are doing and whether they're on track. Reported all that. We have to report that to the Department of Ed, so we were able to do that as well. So, we are in the process of rolling out a new parent notification system. We've been using a system called Square. And at the end of January, we will roll off Parent Square and roll to our Ed Leo. Does it have a different name other than that?
No.
So, and we will be getting information out to board staff, parents about the app and how to receive the notifications. We're doing this for a few reasons. Number one is cost savings, because it's part of our, we can integrate it with our new website. So Cheyenne and Austin, who's joined us back there now, he's smiling, they're in charge of it. So Austin is in charge of a lot of our parent notification stuff. Cheyenne, of course, the website and parent notification. One of the things that we know and that you'll see tonight when Marty presents, we have some new social media guidance for employees in our new recommended, policy manual from the trust. We worked hard with the trust and with our attorney to get that exactly where it needs to be, as far as meet the, information in the law. But also, this is a good, if we're offering a communication system in a way to communicate back and forth with parents, this is the official approved one from the school district, the one that we're rolling out. And so, of course, it's going to be, that's the one you need to be using when you're communicating with parents especially. And one of the benefits of that is we can see all the traffic. So we know what was said, we know what kind of messages go out, that sort of thing too. So we're doing some things inside the district to tighten up some of the ways that we communicate with parents and to make sure that we have some really good effective ways to help them get common. It's okay. A common piece of information that parents and everyone likes to receive, of course, is when we have a weather-related message. So anyway, we're working on the messaging for that. Cheyenne and Austin are very close on it. They're importing staff information right now so we can have a smooth transition. So it's been good. We're working on ways to save money and more effectively and safely provide communication platforms.
Awesome.
So the second issue of Cougar News will be in your regular mailboxes sometime late January or first week of February. So the second edition of that. The first edition was super well received. So we're looking forward to that. And then I would like to know if I put information in for the normal sequence of events regarding expenditure recommendations for next year. So that is listed. And then I'd like to know, do we want to, and we can hash it out at the end of the meeting, but do we want to have a budget work session at all prior to our February meeting? And you'll kind of know that after you hear stuff tonight, whether you feel like you want that. And I gave some possible dates for that. So we have a meeting, as you, just to refresh everybody's memory. School Facilities Board condemned 10 classrooms at the high school and are building a new building for us. And we have a meeting with the architect a week from Wednesday, CVHS staff and folk to kind of get more of their input. I've already provided a lot of that to the architect about what kinds of things they want to see in that building. So, and then I started listing for you as we look forward to next year, because it's January, so it is next year. But one is graduation, which is May 20th at 7 at Finley. Our strategic planning day is Thursday, May 28th at Grace, and all staff orientation kickoff will be Thursday, July 30th at Grace. So we have those dates solidified for you as well.
Any questions from Ms. Daniels? What day of the week is May 20th? Just
Wednesday?
Wednesday? Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
We have had a non-Wednesday.
That's kind of our designated day with Finley. So like Ember Riddle has a day, Yavapai has a day, Bradshaw has a day, we have a day, so stick to our day.
For sure. All right, item 6B1 is financial report for December 31st. Mr. Livingston.
Yes, President Thomas, members of the board,
administration and staff, guests and employees, and anyone else that's here. A quick look at our quick look at our December 31st financial picture. I've been doing a lot of research. We're going to hear about this at the February meeting and trying to rewrite past annual financial reports that could sweeten or I guess increase our positive cash flow and decrease some of our expenses. And I've been working on that since July actually. And you'll hear more about that in February. We will revise the budget for the second time in the February meeting. So stand by. A quick look at page 1 of your financial report information there. Our budget for our capital or M&O fund right now, right around 19,200,000. Expenses year to date, 9.8 million. That's right around the 50% level of our budget. We want to make that better as the year goes by, and we've got some plans to do that. I'd like to focus on one number there on that front page, if you can turn to it, budget summary. It's to the right, it says budget balance, and there's a 662,000 in parentheses there, 662,873. I'd like to discuss 5 things that's comprised of. There's a few littler, smaller ones, but the main 5. When we have funds like 855 fund, that's, if you want to look at the cash later on, we've got that on the cash report. 855 fund starts the year with 0 cash. The other funds I'm going to talk about also start the year with 0 cash. They don't have enough revenue from year to year to put any expense in there. As the year goes by, including the 855 fund for Medicare, medical insurance buyout. So if we're an employee that buys, like I do, health insurance for my spouse, that's my cost. So as I do that, those funds accumulate in this 855 fund. And as time goes by, we can then move the transfer of the expense from our operating fund that paid for those insurance premiums into the 855 fund. That's usually $400,000 a year. So that really helps. Then M&O expenses tumble by that $400,000. Other funds that are in there are, we have a special ed grant for high cost students. That's been around $70,000 a year. We've got our after school program at Del Rio campus, the CASA. And we've got a couple preschool funds. And we've also got a couple gaming funds that bring in about $150,000 a year, and 022, 024. So none of those funds have enough cash flow or revenue at any given time to put expense in. But as the year goes by, we can move that expense. So that's what the 662 is. Last year we moved over 800,000 of M&O expenses into these other funds. Any question on how that works? We just call them cash short funds. But if we leave the expense in our M&O fund, that's no good because it's not an M&O expense. We've got to accumulate those revenues before we can put the expense in. So we see our capital budget, 83,000 spent, 202, encumbered 450. So there's about 220,000 unspent there, which is about 25% of the budget unspent. Adjacent ways, 650,000. We know we want to put more in there. We're going to start looking at some projects. We might have expense there for this year, in addition to the 584,000, but we're not sure. We've still got to get some bids out and just do some timing issues there with our facilities director. If we do that, we'll probably be getting bids in February, March for something like this. I would imagine, Mr. Sheriff, as time goes by, we have to see just when we want to do that. So. And that's adjacent ways that does primarily fire lanes and things like that we need upgraded. A quick look at, as we go further along here, pending cash for November, if we go to the 3rd page there, in the report, 7.4 million. Pending cash in December, 6.3 million, so down about 1.1 million. There's one fund that's responsible for that, and that's our 691 fund. That's this fund from the state that is improving all of our facilities. So we received $979,000 from them about the 28th of December after we wrote our last checks for our vendors. So that's why there's cash that's gone down, as you can see, about that 6.3 million, and it crossed actually in the month of November. It was just sitting there. It wasn't really cash. We were just the custodians of it for a while. It's just a pass through. It's not, so don't get too concerned about the cash balance going down $1 million there, based on timing of those revenues. And then as we take a look at just the cash itself, the very last part of my presentation here for the month of December. If you take a look at that fund 691, it's towards the back there. Back page, you can see the increase, the 1,588,000, and then 1,588,000 spent, and the 30,000 left over. Those were also November revenues. So sometimes it takes us a while. There's so many ways when we submit invoices to the state that they can reject them. Sometimes they'll notarize it, the vendor or the architect will notarize the invoice, and the architect stamp for the notary will be on top of the general contractor's signature. So we submit it, 2 weeks later, School Facilities Board rejects it. So there's not much we can do when we have revenues that we receive. That's great, everything's been processed, but when we have invoices that are processed, sometimes it takes an extra 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 weeks, especially when we find unforeseen conditions that result in a change order and an amendment that they have to be approved by 7 people at the state for the board. We had one for 320,000 at Heritage Middle School a year and a half ago. We've had over 500,000 at the high school, just unforeseen conditions that they run into that take more time. Spring break, can you give us a quick update, Mr. Sheriff, on what's happening at the high school based on electrical problems? For the high school for spring break for Pueblo Mechanical.
Over here?
Yeah, just real quick, they're into some electrical issues.
Yeah, the bus control and the main building was basically installed improperly from day one. When Pueblo Mechanical went in to do the work, they realized they can't actually shut that down. There's still power feeding out, that has to get corrected. SFB did fund it, but it's time appropriate, so they're coming in on March 16th, I think is the day it's set up for them to kill power to which will actually shut down all of our internet, everything district-wide and it's about 2-day event.
And my understanding is it's got to be done during that time. You say, why couldn't they do it during a Friday? Because it won't work because they've got to have 2 days. They've got to have another day for a really high-level tester to come.
Well, it's multiple parties involved. You've got Pueblo, you've got the APS, you've got multiple parties that can come in that has to be, this town has to sign off on it. There's so many avenues that's why we're picking that day to do it, because it's gonna be, if anything goes wrong, we've still got more days of the week to go into.
Thank you. So that's the quickest we can do it is over spring break.
Will that interfere with any basketball or anything else?
Yeah, there's nothing can run, basically.
Thank you. I got an interesting email and a phone call last week from the Auditor General. And some of you might have sent an email from me to you explaining what the Auditor General wanted to discuss or present or engage us with. It's I got a lot of these comments I can make. And we like the Auditor General because they're there to give us a chart of accounts that when we make our expenses, and every expense that we do has 20 different numbers. We like their chart of accounts. We like it when we know what they're going to change in those chart of accounts. We like it when they give us reports that say your financial condition is pristine or admirable. We like those reports. So there's reports coming out now. They do it every January of every year. I've given you a copy on page 2 here of the one that's a year old. I'll just go through. We got 4 pages here, 4 or 5 pages. So I'll just summarize this. This is the email I got last Friday from the auditor. Hey, John. This is from Chris Vocherbeck, who's been there about 14 years. He worked as a car salesman. Whenever I talk to Chris Vocherbeck, we always talk about the best car to buy and where and when to get it. But now he's a CPA and he works for the Auditor General. As we mentioned in our December data confirmation, we will be publishing our annual school district financial risk analysis results later this month. And I got that on Friday, January 9th. Although your district was not identified among the highest risk districts for our school district risk analysis, our review says it is approaching the high risk category. So I guess that means you're on a high diving board and you're at rung 7. And if you go to rung 10, if any high divers are in here, you know you can probably do a triple backflip, but you might break your neck if you go ring 11. I'm not sure what that is. But so we don't want to go any higher on the risk analysis. We want to go lower, get out of this category. So this is something that's going to result in a phone call to me. I'll probably discuss this with Assistant Superintendent Heidi right here. you don't need to do a corrective action plan saying these 9 elements I'm going to show you. Here's how we're going to move down the ladder on those risk analysis, but we need to discuss it. It's a discussion. So if we turn to page 2, here's the 9 items that they look at, and they give us a score based on financial results from the 25-year and what they see so far in the 26-year. First one, change in weighted student count. And they put our 4-year change to the right, and our yours should have a little red circle on it, the things that I've circled there. And we're negative 4% year to year. And I went over this with superintendent. From the 23-year, I think we've gone down 12%, 4% a year for 22-23 to 23-24 to 24-25 to 25-26. So we're in a bit of a decline there. So that's easy to document. That's the first one. Then they do one budget limit reserve. What's the unspent budget in our operating fund? And that's not in the red category. The first one was in the red category for weighted student counts. Then we look at budget limit reserve for capital. That's a number 2 red. Then we go down, I'll just go through these real quick. The one in the middle, financial position, general fund, operating margin. This is an interesting one. You see the 1.1 and then the negative for the 23-year. This is interesting, and I'll just kind of try to do this with my hands. I'm not from France, but I can still have it. So if our budget last year was 19 million even, and it wasn't, it was 19.6, but if it was 19 million even, and we spent 18 million 8, so about 1% wasn't spent. You'd think, well, why would they put a 1% in here? What they care about is how we got to that 18 million, and it's defined this operating margin as not including the 850,000 we dropped in from capital, not including the 900,000 we brought forward from the M&O from the prior year. None of that carry forward, just new year revenue. So if your new year revenue, the way they define it, and I put that at the bottom of the page, I'll just read that for operating margin. This measure shows the percent of district general fund revenues. So those transfers in aren't really revenues. The carry forward isn't really revenues. Not spent in the year. So if we spent 18.8 million like we did last year, and we brought in revenues of 18.6, that's how they're getting that really tight amount, because it's not including some of those carryovers and transfers in. So they're saying our operating margin should be higher. And then we go down to the last red one, and we know we've been doing this, but we've just had reasons to do it. The last red one's on the lower left. Capital monies redirected to operations. So our capital budget's been between 1.3 and 1.7 million for the last couple of years, and we can leave it there and use it for capital items. Our capital budget is so under pressure this year. Our maintenance director came to me today, said, "Can we buy a $3,000 cement mixture by hand?" And I had to back up and hit the wall. And when I bounced off the wall back to talk to him, I said, "Well, I'm going to do what we can. It might take a few funds to find that $3,000 because capital, as we've gone over with our staff and our directors and our principal, is pretty much spent for the year. We have debt service, we have other obligations. So we're going to find that $3,000 for the cement mixture because the Office of Civil Rights came by and wrote up the high school, I guess, for not having access to some ADA ramps and sidewalks. So we better get our sidewalks fixed. So we'll do that. So there's the last sentence then. The district with below average operating reserves exposes itself to higher financial risk each time economic spending exceeds its revenues and gets a negative. As far as it's been really close to the negative operating, but we've been able to do that in the last 3 years, transfer money from M&O into capital to save it and do things with it. And then money back from capital to M&O. And when we do that, when we support M&O with the capital funds, the state says, well, why are you doing that? Why do you need to pay teacher salaries and staff salaries and insurance out of your capital fund with the transfer? Well, we've had several reasons. We've had several reasons to do that. So that's page 2. Page 3, if you want to take a look, this is going back to the end of the 24 year. So the end of the 24 was June 30th of 2024. Auditors were here about August 7th of 2024. About September 1st of 2024, I get a letter from our auditors. And they tell me, we've got a problem here. And I knew about it, but I wasn't expecting a letter that soon. Why did your instruction, if you look at that third page, you got it sideways. Why did your instructional expenses jump from the 23 year of 13.5 million to the 24 year of 14.8 million when your student count went down 100? And I scratched my head for a while and I said, well, I can tell you why. and you just take a look down at the bottom of the page, my little notes there, we did a couple things in the 24 year to really increase expenses. That 1.3 million, 1,324,943. We had a priority to do certified staff stipends. That was over 400,000. We hired several people, but new staff hires, over 500,000. And then we built $900,000 from district funds for staff housing project. So right there is 1.8 million. And then down below that, you see the student account, the 23 year, 2253, 2,253, 24 year, 2170, 25 year last year, 2049, and this year, right on 1949. So we've been dropping 300 students over that 4-year period. So I wrote back and said we had priorities to do these projects and do staff stipends and hire more staff. And this year, just ended June of 25, we got some of those expenditures back, kind of maybe, I'm not sure what the best word is, normalized, or try to connect. We try to connect our expenditures to our number of staff and our number of students. And students generate it, staff have so many costs going against that, but we try to keep them in line. Any questions or observations?
I'm just looking at this, we're just saying we had the increase in the certified staff stipend, the new staff hires, quite a few, and operation expenses for the staff housing. I mean, is that more student related, or is it, looks like it's a lot of staff related expenses, even though the number of students went down? Am I accurate there? Oh, okay. Thank you.
That's kind of a distinction right there. That it was, these costs were more staff related.
A bit more staff related than student related, it seems like to me.
I think what you're also implying maybe, might be, are we providing more maybe AP classes in the high school that increase these costs? Or are we providing other services for students, or what exactly is going on? I can say part of that, in addition to these hires, were our special ed, I guess you could say our special ed program itself during these time periods. 23 year was 2.6 million, 24 year was 3.1 million, 25 year was 3.7. So that's exponentially not even mentioned because we don't have a special ed line here for those costs. That's also just marching and marching and marching on, over 300,000 increase a year. So that's also happening at the same time our student count is going down. So we're on there. Any comments on that, Superintendent?
No, when we, that was something that had occurred at the end of the 24 fiscal year. And that was something I inherited. And because of that, we made significant cuts last spring coming into this year. Some of the expenses that John mentioned that we have been outsourcing, like special education services from providers that were contracted providers rather than employees, it's a significantly higher expense. We folded them in, people in as employees to save money on those things as well, to help offset some of those escalating special ed costs. There had been, rather than saving money when we had the opportunity to a couple of years ago, it was spent on teacher stipends, one-time teacher stipends. And, you know, and I would say it's a twofold issue, right? So like we worked really hard to reduce spending, even though we increased some employees coming into this year. But the other part of that was, I think when the board agreed to those recommendations, that I think nobody could have predicted what the ESA impact would be over last year and this year as well. You know, there was a little bit of a hint of that, but that's where we were. And
Because there for a few years, even though we weren't growing, we also weren't necessarily losing.
correct.
And then
Pretty flat.
bam, we just lost.
And truthfully, you know, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20 vision, right? But a couple of years ago, that outgoing recommendation probably should have been denied, so we had a larger account to sit on, to, rainy day, right? But that's a situation that we find ourselves in now, and, later on in the meeting, you'll hear from me the things that the staff are, have brought forth as ways to curtail that. We know that special education costs will only continue to escalate. And as John pointed out, we have my 18th year in the district, our special education student population has doubled. And part of it's not over identification here inside the district, it's changing needs that students have, changing needs that people in the community bring their students with some very, very profound needs, whether they're medical or, intellectual disabilities or whatever it may be. And that's something that, as we talk to staff about, we are, with the ESA process, we're losing general education students and gaining special education students. So it's skewing the percentage in the district as well. So before, like when I came to the district, we were sitting like 11.5-ish% of our student population receive special services. Now, like 23 or 24% does. Part of that's because our gen ed population has dropped. It's not that just gen ed stayed here and sped went here. It was kind of this horrible sort of teeter-totter thing too. So while we had some decisions, a couple, 3-4 years ago that are impacting where we are today, there's some other factors as well.
It sounds like the whole state
Yes,
is looking at these budget cuts and everything.
And what, John and Heidi and I visited today, of course, we visited when we saw the thing from the Auditor General last week too, is that I do not even know, and John probably didn't think to ask the question because, you're like, okay, you got the email, right? How many other districts in the state are also receiving the same email? And I have got to believe it is more than 50% of the districts in the state. When you do listen to the news and see, and one of the things we talked about is this approaching high risk isn't really like a category. And so and we talked today about the possibility of these letters and creating this designation as a political tool, because the Auditor General needs to be able to talk to the legislature, needs to be able to talk to the governor about the impact of the ESAs. And so what better way to talk about it than to have a new phraseology that's like, yes, they're not here, but they're approaching. So it's, it's like not an official category, it's like a warning status. But then they can say, we've designated X number of districts or whatever. And so in that next meeting that John has with Auditor General, that's one of the things that I'll be curious to have John inquire about, is how many of our peers find themselves in this very similar situation. And I'll be honest with you, I was surprised last week when I turned the news on and saw that Peoria will be voting to close schools this month as well too. And they typically have been a district that has experienced explosive growth, especially in that far northwest valley. And to think that they're facing that situation as well tells you it's not isolated to rural districts, but it's truthfully impacting everybody. So it is a very untenable situation, and we have to, the things that we've talked about, admin team, director team, we've talked about openly with staff, is that we have to do things not only to protect the district for next year, but to keep setting us up for what may be coming as well, and making decisions now with the idea that it will create opportunities for us to make sound decisions moving forward about money. So rather than just like, okay, we have to adjust right now for what's in front of us. Yes, we're doing that, but we're also trying to apply a lot of forethought over the next couple of years. And You know, and I'll be honest, I remember in a board meeting, Annie asked the question, should we be doing this when we gave the stipends to teaching staff? And it was a good question. Because in hindsight, the answer, probably no. Because we would have had an extra $500,000 we were sitting on.
I was gonna say, the only good thing, we kept teachers, we probably would have left the district too.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
It really is, because we have typical turnover every year anyway. I mean, it's really hard to say. And truthfully, given the opportunity to put, money in staff pockets, I'm all for it. Did not have predicted the cliff that everybody would be facing either.
Well, having a school is most important. Well, it is,
So there's that.
Having more schools is really important, obvious.
Sorry, just a point of clarification for my edification. When you talk about what percent of our peer schools, what does peer schools mean? Is that just rural schools or is that?
Yeah, really, I was referring to other regular geographically bound districts because charter schools aren't really our peers. They're not geography bound. And so schools that are geographically bound. Just about 250 of those in Arizona.
One more, just a comment, the question, it was kind of a question, and I actually got from someone at the Auditor General's office a prediction of how many other districts are in this vague category called approaches. And I did chat with Christopher Trubeck last year at this time, and his definition of the term approaches high risk was that the district might be, those of you that were really watching or involved in public ed back in 2007 know that 7 school districts were placed into receivership in 2007. And he recalled those school districts and said, when you're in that position, it's like you're leaving the shore. I had a couple of examples to bring up, but here's a new one just popped into my mind. So I'll share it. When you're leaving the shore where there's 6 inches of shore ice and you proceed to the best ice fishing hole where there's 3 inches of good ice, and you hear the ice creak and you see your dog fall through over here, you probably better turn around and go back where it's 6 inches. And he said it's a warning. This category is a warning. These categories, these financial risks, these 9 measures should alarm, alert, unify, inform, and direct your behaviors so you don't continue to the really good ice fishing hole and fall through. Now you're food for the walleyes instead of, you're putting them in your
Good thing I'm not an ice fisher.
But things like our student count, we have no control.
And that's one thing Chris stressed. There's so many things that are in these categories that you can't control, but you can control your staffing. You can control how many people in the district are eligible for health insurance. You can control how many people in the district pay for their own or their spouses. You can control how many students are in a classroom, but there's a lot of things you can't control, and that's exactly right. So that's what he kind of stressed. It's a warning.
I would like you to tell everyone what the back page
That's his story.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much. I see Ed was really impressed with my walleye story. So
I really like that.
Oh, you like that one? Okay, so what does that mean to you? I'll say, what does that mean to you? There you go. Is there a-
Okay. It says at some point the path to financial wellness is to accept reality.
What's the story?
Well, I'm not going if my dog falls through the ice.
Okay, you're not going up. This was an actual real life experience I had first year university up in Utah, and I'm up there and it's almost dark, and I have this feeling I should turn around and look up the ski hill. So I did, and here's this item that's sticking like this, and I get back up there. It takes me 20 minutes. If you've ever tried to go up a hill with downhill skis, it's pretty hard to just climb a hill for maybe 300 yards. But I got there, and here's this guy, his head's buried in 18 inches of snow, his skis are broken and sticking up, and I pulled him up and slapped him around, he wasn't breathing, and threw him on my back and took him down to the medic, and they got him breathing again, and it was pretty cold, and they labeled that experience, he proceeded into dangerous terrain at high speed. So I don't know if there's a directional correlation with what happened here with our student count reduction, but if we go into darkness at a high speed and no one saw him, that was the thing. The Arctic Cats were there, the Polaris were there. They didn't see this guy, they didn't see because there wasn't much for them to see. There was just a broken ski. But I turned around, I don't know why, and so Simon brought him down and he lived. But it's hard to say that there's any school district that doesn't proceed into darkness because exactly of the student issue. So we don't know when we open the doors in July exactly what our student count, therefore our revenue is going to be in the next year. So I guess it's kind of like living with this poor guy. He's heading down into a chute. There's trees and rocks, and he's going to, by golly, survive it. And I don't know if the guy I saved, I don't know if he would have. They said he probably would have frozen to death in another couple of hours. But we all have to do that if we're in public ed because we don't even know our budget until February of the next year. But what can we do? I guess that's what we can try to.
And when we talk later about some of the recommendations that staff are making, I had asked John to build a budget projection based on the average of the 4% student decline that we've experienced over the last 3 years. So John built basically a revenue projection. And then we looked at, okay, what do we need to do to make that revenue projection? Because realizing that to fully make it and draw nothing from capital would be a really dramatic shift. So to diminish what we're pulling from capital, because truthfully, we can. It's like we're operating in a way that's allowable. But to diminish that, to put the district over the course of the next 2 years in far better financial position and better financial stability than we've been experiencing. So John went ahead and built that out. We know the minimum that we need to trim from our expenditures going into the next fiscal year based on that 4%. We have some recommendations to trim more than the bare minimum to give us some wiggle room for other maybe increased expenses, whether it's the need to support, like we are bumping really close to minimum wage on all our class salaries, things like that, to give some raises to accommodate bumps in Arizona state minimum wage and things like that. And we projected a potential increase in our insurance while we're still shopping for cheaper insurance options and things like that. So we try to create enough wiggle room and bring recommendations forward that exceed the minimum trim that we need to do to allow for that. So that's where we are.
Mr. Livingston, is everyone good with that? Before we go on to student financial
I
reports,
have
would it be
no
okay?
skiing analogy.
Okay, I was just gonna ask if we could go ahead and do student council report. Leah, go ahead and come on up.
It's behind you.
Oh, thank you. You don't need it.
So this last month, each class level within student council participated in the Angel Tree program that's organized by Caitlin's Closet. This initiative was very successful and a lot of our students enjoyed that. And some of them even gave some of their own money, so that was great. We also participated in the Shop with a Cop event. So it was mostly the cheer team, but some of the student council members did come with us. So if you're not familiar with that, it's hosted by the local police departments, mostly in the Prescott area, but they provide money to children to shop at Walmart. And each of them usually receives around $300 to purchase clothing and gifts for themselves and their families usually. And then we also had our hoop coming this past week, which was enjoyable for those who did participate. In 2 weeks now, we have 12 student council members who are attending that 3-day state convention in Gilbert. So we're super excited for that and have started preparing our costumes for the 3 days. We also have our blood drive coming up on January 27th, so we're just starting to prepare for that. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you so much. We'll see you next month. All right, with that, we'll go on to item 6B2, student fund.
Great. Well, some really good news. The high school archery club has $1,200 worth of revenues and $40 worth of expenses. So I need to interview the advisor for the high school archery club and see how they're making that work. We like those numbers. Another new program, I see high school pickleball is now on this student activity. So we'll be interested to see if they join maybe with the town facilities, where there might be some new facilities coming in. We may have a champion pickleball player coming out of Valley. And that's really all I have.
Item 7A is our consent agenda. No one wants to pull anything off of it. Entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
You? Fantastic. Item 8A, personnel report.
Madam President, board members, Ms. Daniels, and everybody else, we have on our personnel report for January, we have 1 new certified employee, 2 new classified employees, 13 resignations, 5 retirements, 1 termination, 1 certified change, 10 classified changes, 3 coaches, and 5 extra duty employees. I don't have any time sheets to report this month.
13 resignations, that's a lot. And we've got, I was looking over some of the resignation letters. We've got a lot of people that have been with the district for a long time that are retiring, which is sad. I mean,
I actually added up how many people have been here longer than I have. There are, I think, 17 now. That's all.
Really?
Yeah. Larry's one of them in the room. Julie, Brandy, Eric.
well, Julie's gonna be here for like ever, so.
Amen.
Larry, Julie, Brandy, and
Yeah,
Eric,
okay.
and Jenny
Yep.
have all been here longer than I have.
We're gonna make sure those sidewalks are wheelchair accessible.
Fantastic. All right, so this is an action item unless you have more discussion. So how many of those people do we have to fill those positions for, or can we keep some of them maybe?
A good portion, and we'll be talking about that later, we do not have to fill, but we do need a couple positions that we do need to fill for next year. Because they're leaving, like a science position and some other things that we're working on. But
Just thought I would ask.
no, that's a great question, because, yeah.
This is an action item. We can have a motion to approve.
I will make the motion for the approval. What am I approving?
Personnel report.
So I make a motion to approve the personnel report.
A second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 8B is a high school registrar secretary to job description.
Yeah, so part of my job is to update all the job descriptions and look at salary schedules, but on this particular one, we are updating the high school registrar / administrative assistant position. I just updated it with more current information. It was very generic. It hadn't been revised in like 5 years. And additionally, we're requesting that this position transition from a 12-month to an 11-month position.
Is it for doing the,
It's for the high school when they do the transcripts and
right, but what's the
register.
reason for going down to an 11 month?
Oh,
rather
that,
than
the
12
new
month?
person that is taking the place of our registrar who is retiring has requested that. She believes that she can do it all in 11 months. And we are willing, in order to save some money, to see if that comes to fruition. And she's very capable, so I think it could be done.
One of the big reasons is to, like, it's been 2 years, I think, since we went to Parchment.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, so we used to process all the transcripts by hand for transcript requests. And we started purchasing a service that like other high schools, colleges, and universities use. So anybody who's ever graduated from CVHS, within reason, can go online and just order them themselves. So like we don't have to, and a lot of our summertime, that whole month was kind of devoted to transcript stuff. So now we have an automated system, so that makes it helpful too.
It saved it up. It saved the registrar a lot of time.
The only time that I can is like I'm legit, I probably get 2 letters a year. I went to school at the Chino Valley School and in 1954, and can you verify that? And I'm like, tell me who your teacher was, and then I'm like, if they can name somebody, or I'll say, tell me where you lived, and if they say, oh, road, whatever, I'm like, yeah, that's a road here, I'll verify you. I don't know if you went here or not. So,
All right, once again, an action item.
I'll make the motion for the approval of the high school registrar administrative assistant job description and changing the position from a 12-month to an 11-month schedule.
A second.
I'll second.
We both will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 8C, teacherage rental policy updates and rate adjustment for school year 26-27 this fall.
So what we're requesting is an extension of our rental agreements for staff members who are currently occupying our teacherage. Our policy GCBDA and regulation GCBDA-R said it was 2 years, but we want to go ahead and extend it to May 31st, 2027. In order to provide housing stability, because rent is very expensive everywhere, and also minimize any disruption for our current personnel. And this request is supported by our hiring projections that we will not be hiring any people or anybody from out of the country. And so we don't expect a high demand for housing for new recruits. If we do, we'll have a few spots open. And we also are looking at a rate adjustment from increasing our rent starting July 1st. From $550 to $650 a month. And then also we would like to expand our housing eligibility to local police and fire department employees. Under this arrangement, we would contract directly with these departments through some kind of like IGA.
Is our housing over there, is it full right now?
Yes, right now it's full.
Yeah, I think 650 is fair. Yeah. So will we have teachers staying there through the summer?
we always do.
We
Always
do
do?
every,
Okay.
They live there year round.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I wanted to find out.
The other thing is I want to point out, John talked about the $900,000 price tag. At the current rate that we collect rent, it will take us 20 years to break even on that $900,000 expenditure that the district took on. We only collect right now about a little bit less than 2/3 in rent of what it costs us to pay the bill, pay our mortgage, basically pay our loan off every year. So this isn't going to close the gap entirely, but it's going to help.
Okay.
Because a 20-year break even is a big ouch.
Pose this to the people that are living there. Living there right now.
Once you approve it, I will be sending them an email. I've already discussed it with a few of them. We have mentioned about increasing the rate of the rentals at every meeting that Cindy, myself, or Shelley attended to let them know. Nobody is scoffing it. A couple people said it's still cheaper than anywhere else. So
And it's
they're not.
probably in their contract somewhere about a rate increase.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll get a new lease.
We'll give them a new lease, and so nobody's complaining or they were all relieved that we would extend it a year if you guys approve that.
I have kind of a small question on this. Do teachers get preference?
Yes.
Priority, even if we're opening it up to like the police and whatever, the teachers?
Oh, yeah, we would make sure that was open, that anybody we hired for next year would have preference over it. Or anybody that would come to me and say they needed to, if there was a housing available, yes, they would have preference.
And we're looking at the law enforcement simply because we want to ensure the houses
Yes,
are full.
well,
right?
that's why, yes.
And having
good idea.
our out of country teachers leave, that we could have some vacancies.
Yes,
correct?
we could.
And we can't, we need every dime we can get.
It sounds like the teachers that are there are happy.
Yes, the teachers are there happy.
So
Yeah.
there will be a bill introduced in this legislative session to allow districts that are closing schools to retrofit the empty schools to become teacher housing.
I saw that.
And there's a lot of buzz right now about what if you have to evict somebody? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. So I had an inquiry today about, have we ever had to evict a teacher? No. So We're actually gonna send a copy of the contract that we use that will become hopefully helpful to them in this legislative session.
Yeah, this is an action item. I'll make a motion for the approval to extend the rental agreements for staff through May 31st, 2027, increase the monthly rental rate to $650, and authorize CVUSD to enter into housing contracts with local police and fire departments for their employees.
No, second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Item 9A, adoption of iReady My Path intervention materials for grades 3 to 5. Miss Bryce.
I'll just watch.
Hello, ladies, Madam President, members of the board. So there's two items on here. I'm going to kind of talk about it together. Okay, so I'm going to come close to, I have nothing to hold on to. Oh, thank you.
You asked
Safe
and
distance and everything.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Shall receive.
The ladies are happy now. Okay, so we've been going through the math adoption process for K-8 since last year. And so after piloting the two programs, the K-8 teachers and administration have decided that one thing that they want to keep, and this is at Del Rio, they want to keep to adopt the My Path intervention that goes with one of the curriculums, iReady. Okay, it's an intervention supplement piece, and Del Rio is very happy with it and would like to adopt that for 1 year. These really should be in a different order, so I really want to talk about this one first. Okay. So after piloting iReady and Amplify, the ratings for both of those programs came back as good. For the money that these companies are asking for this material, good is not what we want. We want excellent. We want that this material is going to fulfill everything we need in a classroom. And none of the schools could give us that they felt that these were going to be very sufficient and give us what we need in our math curriculum. So the recommendation is that we stay with McGraw-Hill, the program we currently use, for 1 year. It has been, it is a new edition. The new edition is called Arizona Reveal Math at 2027. My recommendation to the board, to the administrators, and to the teachers was, let's stay with McGraw-Hill for a year. See what their changes have been made, and meet back together with Eric, their new curriculum director, in December. Curriculum star. And decide, are the changes in McGraw-Hill what they say they are? Because the things that teachers were concerned about McGraw-Hill were spiraling, and also the order and when they were presenting the materials. Now, McGraw-Hill's, this new edition has been rewritten to match Arizona's math standards. And they say they have taken all of the comments from districts around the state and have revamped it, and it's supposed to be a better program. It will save us a lot of money if our teachers love it and it fulfills what they need. Del Rio really liked the My Path intervention piece. It is computer-based. They are about 1-to-1. Would you say, Ed? Mm-hmm. About 1-to-1. You would need to be 1-to-1 in order to use the My Path.
Tell them what that means.
Every student has a computer in front of them at all times if they need it. Where our tech students, they are not 1-to-1. I believe you have about 6 to 7 in a classroom. Computers. So that intervention piece is not worth spending the money for tech, but it is worth the money for Del Rio. And they feel like it is giving the students the intervention that they need, closing gaps that they are seeing in students' education with the math. So my recommendation, we have to do one adoption at a time. So my recommendation is that we adopt MyPath intervention piece for Del Rio for 1 year. We'll look at it again in this next spring, 2027, and decide if that's something they want to continue. iReady has been very generous, and they have given Del Rio access to it for the rest of this year for free, which was very kind of them. So I recommend that we adopt this for Del Rio for 1 year, ladies.
So we'll do two separate motions here. The first one from 9A would be the motion to approve the adoption of iReady MyPath assessment and intervention programs for grade 3 to 5. with the Possibility of adding grade 6. So that's going to be our first motion. Whoever would like to
Okay,
make it.
I will make the motion for the approval. The recommendation is to approve adoption of iReady MyPath assessment and the intervention programs for grades 3 through 5 with a possibility of adding grade 6.
And a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very
The next
good.
one is
Del Rio will be
without
very
adoption.
happy.
Okay.
Okay.
then-
Now,
Rio was very happy.
they're all very happy. So now, we need to adopt McGraw-Hill, the new edition, for 1 year. And then we'll look at it, and that will give them 3 companies to look at at the end of December, 1st of January, 2027, to decide if they want to stay with McGraw-Hill. I doubt they'll want to do another pilot, ladies, to be honest with you, or if they want to adopt one of the other ones. But I think it's worth looking at and using McGraw-Hill for another year.
McGraw-Hill's has met the needs of the children. For sure.
It has so far. It was missing a couple of things, which that's why we went out and looked at all those curriculums and chose 2 to pilot because it was missing a few things. But McGraw-Hill says they have addressed those issues in their new edition. So I'm curious to see if K-8's going to be happy with those changes.
What I want to make sure,
Yeah. So my recommendation is we adopt it for 1 year. And Beverly, thank you. Beverly was on our meeting, our call, so that was good that she was there to hear what had to be said. So
All right, I'll make the motion for the recommendation is to approve staying with the current McGraw-Hill curriculum for 1 more year.
And I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
ladies, thank you. Very good choice. Thank you.
Doing a great job putting together that committee.
Item 10A is going to be a discussion item only, our fiscal year 27 savings projections.
Okay, so I wanted to start with a few caveats. This attachment was a confidential attachment, and all the information provided in here was to allow us to be able to have accurate numbers. And as we talk through some of the things, I want to caution us that that we're presenting this to you tonight just for some questions and some discussion. Tomorrow, should it be necessary, we'll have directors and administrators visiting with some specific staff. But this isn't anything that we would vote on until next month. And
This is
then
confidential.
all the little detail, but we'll talk about the broad categories openly.
Okay.
So, and then I have for you, should it become necessary to have a formal reduction in force for employees or positions, I have guidance for you from our attorney. So you have time to look that over to understand what that would be. But as Marcia pointed out this evening, as a result of, going on the road around all the schools and talking about the situation that we're in, we've been working pretty hard to encourage people. If you know that you aren't going to be returning for the next school year for whatever reason, whether you're retiring or moving away or whatever, need to care for an aging parent, that we would kindly ask that you let us know sooner than later, because we would hate to have to drift someone only to learn later that you aren't coming back and we could have given that person their job or whatever. So, and the staff has been, very professional and very responsive in that situation. So, you'll see by department or by school, what we have been looking at. Now, one thing that I wanted to point out is that we have had a hiring freeze since the beginning of August. So unless a position was like super duper mission critical, we have not filled it. And I think, John, we met, last week, and I think we counted up 9 that we have frozen. And what that will do is, because we haven't filled them, it helps preserve some carryover going into next year, which is, every penny saved, right? So you'll see on the top, the very first department is facilities. And I'd like you to note that the first 2 positions on there actually have already been addressed and were frozen. So we had a retirement last week. We had a resignation right before break. The third one on that list is something that will either be taken care of through just normal attrition or, if necessary, could be a RIF. Chris is going to be obtaining his forklift trainer certification. That will save the district $5,000. And when you see on there for mats, that will save $2,500, like all the mats that we have in front of every door. That's only because the first year we have to buy mats. Every year after that, the savings will be more like $12,000 than $2,500. So I understand that other government agencies are also considering similar moves. And Chris also submitted a very long list of other ways that he can help the district save money. We met and talked through some of those today, which will be things like adjusting our thermostats significantly for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So even if someone comes into work, they better bundle up. So things like that. So we're working on that. Chris is working with the manufacturer of our thermostatic controls in order to find out how to individually program specific areas or specific thermostats, things like that. And he asked me, I'm like, dude, this is nothing new, man. Many years ago, same thing. And if I came in on the weekend, I fully expected to sweat or freeze depending on the time of year. So altogether, what Chris has brought forth just in savings that we know are like tangible, like energy savings that are a little bit hard to predict. Chris has presented $188,000 in recommended spending reductions for next year. So in transportation, both of those have already been taken care of by current resignations, and the positions are frozen. I will be having a discussion tomorrow with Humboldt. I reached out to both Prescott and Humboldt because they have much larger shops than we do. We had 2 mechanics. We currently have 1. And some of our larger repairs, if we have to send them to Phoenix, it's expensive, and then it takes literally forever to get a bus back. But Humboldt believes Prescott cannot accommodate us because they already serve Kirkland and Skull Valley as well. Humboldt believes they can accommodate some of our larger repairs for us. So it's, even though, like, we still have to make the repairs, right? We have a lot of people that do at Transpo simple mechanical things on buses and are certified too. But some of the bigger things like transmissions, I think we'll be able to sub out to Humboldt, which is still much cheaper than subbing out to a diesel shop or, something like that. So I've got that one in the works. So those are already, that's a full year savings on there, but we'll have realized 50% of that savings just this year alone as well. So transportation brought forth $113,929 in savings. The district office, the first recommendation is the position that we froze when it was vacated. And we will not be filling that. We've shuffled people around in the DO. Cheyenne shuffled into that position, and John graciously moved one of his employees from the back to the front counter because we have to have somebody on the front counter. And she has assumed additional responsibilities at no extra incurred cost for the district. So we were able to do that. And then we have been this year, in order to save money, because our health insurance went up 2% this year. And our health insurance is the second largest expenditure in our budget beyond payroll. So we pay $1.6 million for 200 employees. Those are our premiums. And so because we jumped from a $2,500 deductible to a $5,000 deductible in order to continue to offer health insurance, we have been contributing to employees' health savings accounts. We are recommending that we curtail the district contribution. Employees still can contribute, but the district would stop contributing, and that saves $350,000 alone, which would help offset any potential savings. Like, so if health insurance was 10%, which is kind of the minimum a lot of times, that's still a $166,000 increase next year. So there's some things, like when I say that we were doing some things to try to offset potential increases, this will be one of them. So the district office is offering up a little over $400,000, $410,000 in savings to our budget for next year. Kudos to CVHS. CVHS has made the largest recommendation of any school for savings projections. And what I want to note on here is that we have, you can already see, we have a retirement, a resignation, a retirement, a retirement. Somebody going to the open position that Heidi just described is going to 11 months. And then we have one potential RIF, which is a part-time employee. Today, that part-time employee, we had 2 science resignations actually. And today that part-time employee was offered one of those, because we need to fill one of the science. That part-time employee was offered that position and has 3 weeks to respond, or we'll look for someone else for it. So that could also be taken care of just through by a transfer. So CVHS has brought forth $343,700 in savings. Information technology, which is Larry's department. The transfer, we have an IT specialist who is part-time IT, part-time ed tech right now. Larry has graciously offered to go down that half-time IT part. This way we can fully fund that IT specialist grants. And that IT specialist now would be ed tech and can assume responsibility for curriculum instruction as well, is well suited to do that, and all of that can be covered by grant funding. And the employees in the room and has agreed to that. Move.
I'm gonna call him the curriculum commander or star.
Wow, good job. And then we have another potential RIF that you see is marked with asterisks. I would like to point out that those asterisks represent positions that the department is requesting only would be a cut of last resort, because it would be a hardship. And so with all of those, it would be a 168 savings recommended from IT. HMS, this is our big one. At HMS, so in this one, and you might be wondering, what in the heck are we supposed to vote on next month? Well, the 2 things that you would have to vote on would be any RIFs that would be necessary. And you would have to vote on this recommendation, which would be that that the whole 5th grade gets retained at Del Rio next year, but that there'll be 6th graders. And so in the past, when we've made grade level adjustments in the district, we had moved a grade level to HMS. That was greeted very lukewarmly in the community. This time we're requesting to go the other direction and have Del Rio become a grade 3 through 6th grade school. Now, I want to point out that we're late in the game compared to our neighboring districts for this. Humboldt moved 6th grade back to their elementary schools a couple of years ago. And about 4 years ago, Prescott did the great shuffle when they closed Miller Valley and sold it for a measly $1 million. And when they closed Washington School, they went to kind of a very unusual configuration, which is preschool at the district office, kindergarten through 4th grade at 2 campuses, 5th and 6th grade at one, 7th and 8th grade at a different one, and 9th through 12. So we're kind of late in the game compared to what some neighboring districts have done with this. And you may ask, why this shift? Well, for 2 reasons. When we had the same enrollment before in the 9-10 school year, we were able to close 2/3 of the campus at Territorial. Even though we have the same number of students now, we have like 13 special education classrooms that we didn't have then. So closing, like squishing everybody back into like 1 grade level at Tech and all that, like that's not doable anymore. So we had to look across the whole district, ideally, where could we recommend completely shuttering classrooms that would have the biggest financial impact? And Heritage is it because it's pods. So Chris can cut the heating and cooling, he can cut the water to the, that pod in like literally lock the doors for all kinds of cost savings. The other thing is, if we go down 1 grade level at HMS, our projected enrollment for 7th and 8th grade at HMS next year is like 321 kids. That's it, which means we do not need 2 administrators. So we have a huge administrative savings, not huge, I'm not going to overemphasize that. Sorry, Marty. But it would allow us to, we have a vacant administrative position at the district office. So it would allow us to reassign the administrator who's well equipped to be reassigned to that position and go down to 1 administrator at HMS and a part-time dean of students. I think that's very doable. So we have a savings and administrative salary savings. Because we would go down a whole grade level, we can go down a support position in the office as well. Don't need as many support. If you're down a 30 of your kids and 30 of your staff, then you can go down office staff as well. You had a termination in December, and we have not filled that. Our language learner teacher has already resigned effective at the end of the year, and we can share a half position there with CVHS. And because of course, again, the changes in configuration, we have 2 paraprofessional staff that truthfully we wouldn't really need to RIF. Their function as long-term subs in those classrooms. So the savings brought forth from HMS is $294,922. I'd like to point out that's not the administrative salary. At Del Rio, we have a 3rd grade teacher who has already resigned. The roll up from 2nd to 3rd, we can accommodate it in 5, like the numbers. 2nd grade has 5 classrooms. We only need 5 3rd grade teachers. We currently have 6, so that's easy. That teacher is has already put in a retirement. We have a position that Ed would like to retain, should he be able to. And then you can see a paraprofessional position as well. Del Rio is recommending $124,647 in savings. Special education, I will quote Dr. Burdette here. Right now, we're driving a Cadillac with these services and we need to be driving a Pinto. And I told her nobody knows what that is anymore and she's going to have to update her analogy.
Or Volkswagen, right?
So whatever's like dingy nowadays. So you could see a recommendation there that is $78,589 in savings. At Territorial, one of the recommendations that staff has heard is that we will not be retaining our foreign workforce. It's number one, in order to have foreign workers, we have to certify that we've been unable to obtain American workers. Also, our foreign workforce costs us more per employee. We have fees that we have to pay for having foreign workers. So we actually, this is what you see as salary alone, not those extra fees. Those extra fees add up to $30,000 more which I should have accounted for, but did not. So our foreign teachers were notified at the end of November that we would not be renewing the agreement with the company that we buy them from. And so they could, one had already resigned because her visa was expiring anyway. We have one who is in the process of obtaining resident alien status. Most people know that more comfortably by the term green card. Should she be able to obtain that prior to contracts being issued, we could retain her because then she's a resident alien. If she does not, then that position would still be a foreign worker and would be eliminated. And as it stands, the kindergarten position, because we had such low kinder enrollment this year, we truthfully probably should have eliminated in August and did not. We're just, because you don't know how many kindergartners are going to walk through the door, so you kind of wait it out. We had a resignation. You'll see the third thing down on that list is one that Brandy would like to retain.
I would like to keep that.
And I will tell you, I am like going every which way to Sunday to try to figure out how to pay for that one. We have a reassignment positions. We had a voluntary request for reduction in hours and a voluntary reassignment request. So what you see from territorial is 390,891 in savings. So all of these things together come to $2.1 million in recommendations if we took everything that's on the list. If we remove the things with the asterisks that people would like to retain, we're sitting at 1.9 million in cuts. And here are some other things that we're doing to save money. So one is, we got a grant last week for $46,000 for early childhood ed. So that'll kick 46,000 more into our coffers. Not having to pay the fees to the company for foreign workers kicks another 30K. We have, should the governor and the legislature cough up money for the Arizona Rural Nurses Grant again, we'll apply for an RN position for a building where we currently only have a health aide, because then we save the health aide pay because the grant would pay for an RN. And I feel pretty positive about that. Catherine Werner, who is our lead RN for the district, is well acquainted with lobby. She's active member of like Arizona Cattle Growers. And so she has already spent time. I sent her in and sicked around a few legislators a couple months ago. And so she's already been lobbying for that renewal of the Arizona Rural School Nurses Grant. So these are the things we have. This is what I would call the first, and it's pretty stinking solid, list of recommendations. But we also know, like, I'm already toying with, I think I've come up with another 100K in savings since I submitted this for the packet a week ago. But then that helps us be able to retain some of those positions that we'd like to retain. These are some potential cost increases. You can see the health insurance cost. If we give the same value of raises going into next year that we gave this year, just to help offset normal cost of living and things that people experiences, I would not say that our raises are overly generous. I would say they're, sort of minimal. But administrators and directors feel that because the people who will still be here will have some increased workload, that it's a way to acknowledge and to kind of shore up and encourage the people who would still be here. So when you see that 1.9 million and you whack 341,000 off that, we are still above what we need to cut. So we're still in a good spot. So with all these recommendations, with these projected increases, we can do these things. Now, before we bring those final recommendations, like we'll bring the 6th grade one, you'll have to vote on that. I'm not sure that you'll have to vote on any RIFs. But those would be the two things you would vote on in February. And then we would take a really, really hard look at this again before we brought contracts to you in March. So that's where we're sitting. And my big question really is, do you want a couple weeks to absorb this and then have just sort of a budget work session? Or is it self-explanatory enough?
I'll just speak first. First off, I know that this, like, I'm so appreciative of everybody, because this isn't an easy thing. I know.
Nope.
And this isn't an easy thing as a board member.
No.
And this is not an easy thing for a mom that's gonna have a sixth grader either.
I'm so sorry.
Seems like Brandy raises when I have a kid to have her in one preschool. Now we're keeping them at Del Rio. I guess I have a couple of questions. Honestly, like, I was really hoping that when we got to this meeting, you guys were gonna change your mind about the Del Rio. I mean, of course, I understand it, right? But do we have room at Del Rio to accommodate keeping them there?
We do. In fact, we have, the way the campus is built, hodgepodge over decades. We have a building unto itself on the backside of the north side of campus that will accommodate sixth grade with its own restroom, so that
And
they
how
can,
many sixth grade teachers would we have?
4 sixth grade classes.
Fourth grade. And,
Plus like a special ed, I mean, but 4 sixth grade classes.
okay, and then my other question, which those are teachers that we already have at Del Rio? Or they will be moving down from?
They're moving from.
Moving from-
They would be coming from HMS.
Okay, and then it's gonna be like Del Rio is right now. You're just gonna have one teacher? Because we're at like moving classrooms, right?
To be determined, they'll be moving, it looks like they'll be moving at the halfway point. So they would have one teacher who would teach. And again, still working on scheduling, and I can't definitively 100% answer that question, but we'll have one teacher who's teaching ELA and social studies, and then another teacher who would be teaching math and science.
Okay, and then my other question, what about like dances and sports, like stuff that sixth graders get to do? Are we still gonna be able to do sports? Are we
Yeah,
gonna
the
do-
sports program will continue with Heritage, and right now we do 5 through 8 for certain sports, and we will continue that. Our athletic director will still manage that, absolutely.
Dances are only 7th and 8th.
And dances are only set, I mean,
7th and 8th anyway. Yeah.
yeah.
And right now, we have fifth graders who graciously go over to the middle school to participate in a few sports, not all, but a few.
Yeah.
And sixth graders still have the opportunity to.
And, I was just gonna say, and band, we're working with Ms. Gambinger and Dr. Moody to have the sixth graders come over and receive band if they would like that as well.
It's just a hop and a skip.
There's a nice paved, little sidewalk on the bus lane in the back, so there's not like, they're not in front of the school.
Questions or? So will the sixth graders that are interested be able to participate in the middle school spelling bee next year?
Del Rio has a spelling bee.
The spelling bee is actually K-8.
Del Rio's not doing bee.
So
We didn't do a bee this
I
year.
would like to challenge Del Rio.
Andy's like, I'm not, I don't care about that.
I know which kid of mine we're talking about.
So yes,
To be fair, I didn't. I wouldn't wait.
so we don't have to, he could do his own. But yes, we absolutely would accommodate as needed. Dr. Moody, I would.
How do you feel about this? How do you feel about taking sixth grade on?
There are kids, and whatever they need and is best for the district, we can do it. We have the room to do it. It would be a relatively seamless transition in that, obviously teachers coming over but there already are kids, and we know them and they know us, and they kind of know our routines and schedules, and their schedule will be a little bit different than they have now. But completely doable.
We have a question. What about safety for the children?
What aspect of,
Well, I understand like at the middle school, visit special needs children,
Mhm.
you know, and some of them are a little bit more aggressive and maybe the teachers aren't getting the proper support or whatever for them. Is this going to help with the safety of the students? I should be asking you that, Karen.
yeah, I mean, I guess both of us could, I mean, those kids who have issues that cause them to be more volatile tend to be in situations, classrooms with teachers that have paras and are built for that, to react to them appropriately. That's not going to change. They are, the way our campus is set up is the sixth graders would be at one end of campus, and then progressively our fifth graders, fourth graders, and third graders in the main building. And so that kind of older kid versus younger kid safety issue really is not going to be that big of an issue. And the way we're looking at the schedule right now, it doesn't look like sixth grade and third grade recess will ever really overlap. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you, because, or as of right now, third, fourth, fifth is all pretty separate as of right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And we have a couple fourth graders who do a couple things with fifth grade just because their academic prowess, that sort of thing. But, and then we have some special ed self-contained classrooms that have students who have earned their way out and are in some regular ed classes, but that's based on their grade levels, not necessarily anything else. So I don't foresee any huge safety issues that are, well, foreseeable. I don't really see any issues.
And to be clear, the sixth graders are not coming down to Del Rio.
We're keeping fifth graders into sixth grade.
At Del Rio,
Yeah.
so the
We already
special
know
needs
them.
children are already going to be familiar with their surroundings and their school and their teachers and their everything else.
Yes.
To see the positive part of this, keeping the sixth graders away from the eighth graders might be a good thing.
There's a big difference between sixth and eighth compared to third and sixth.
There's a huge difference.
You know, when I was in school, it was junior high, and we went to elementary for sixth grade, and then junior high was seventh, eighth, and ninth. And high school was 10th, 11th, 12th. So what's going on with a lot of our children, especially eighth graders? They're ready for high school, and that influence will goes on to the sixth graders. Being a middle school teacher, I'm seeing that. So, you know, I'm thinking it's not a bad thing. It could be more of a positive.
For some of our young charges, it will help with their ability to mature at a more reasonable rate.
They don't need to grow up so fast.
No.
All right, this was just a discussion item, and I think we had a really great discussion. Is there anything else that we want
Do
to
we
talk about?
want a set aside day?
Yeah, I think it's all pretty
I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
And truthfully, anyone in the room, any director, anyone on the admin team, John, Heidi, myself, any of us can answer any questions because we started working on this in October, kind of seeing the writing on the wall, and are all pretty equally versed in where we are with this. What you see is genuinely a collective effort by a phenomenal leadership
I
team in
agree
this
100%.
district.
I agree 100%.
They have done an amazing job moving this forward.
I commend Dr. Moody for being willing to take the sixth graders.
Let's not give them a big.
Exactly, Marcia.
I'm just gonna tell every fifth
Yeah,
grader
he
that's
does not
transparent. I'm not
hear that,
saying
Marcia.
They didn't pass, they had to-
You did it for the glory.
All right, anything else, ladies? No, fantastic. Item 11A is the first reading of chapter 4 of our new policies through the trust. Sorry. Mr. Campbell.
It's the intern.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Daniels. Tonight I'm bringing Chapter 4 Employment Protocols for our first reading. The chapter lays out our employment policies, including hiring, assignments, evaluations, discipline, and discrimination. I've worked closely with Heidi and Shelley to make sure that we got this aligned. It is written at a governance level, and it aligns currently with Arizona law. This is for discussion and feedback only. We will bring it for a second reading next month at a point where we hope the board may consider adopting it into the trust policy manual. Daniels, I think we had a little confusion on the social media policy, so I'm gonna talk about that for a second. So the social media policy, to be honest, we want to make sure we got it right. So we brought it to It's not in there.
Oh, it's not.
So,
Oh, okay.
And so we can put it on for first read as a standalone.
Yes.
We did send it for additional attorney review last
we
week.
did
got
send it
feedback
to,
on
yeah, for
Thursday.
legal
Because that's the
counsel.
one I was really curious about.
Right.
Marty, can you send that out to the board?
Yes, I can
Separately?
send it out
Perfect.
tonight.
Okay.
Yeah. With that, there's also administrative regulation that goes with the social media policy that provides more like practical guidance, like day-to-day guidance. It kind of gives examples on what that looks like in, the day-to-day. It also gives guidance on examples to help staff ensure consistency, protect student safety, maintain public trust, and like I said, kind of what it looks like in everyday practice. So I will send that out to you. Like I said, we want to make sure we got it right, and I didn't get it back in time from legal
And we'll
to make
add
sure
it
that
for-
we can include it today
We'll add it for first reading next month.
Yeah.
As a standalone.
as a standalone.
With chapter 5, which is students.
Right.
I appreciate this. I know that this is something that needed to be updated, so definitely appreciate it.
Yeah.
We did a lot of extra work on that one.
Yeah.
in
We
particular.
did. We looked at a lot of other districts to see what they were doing. And we really wanted to make it concise, so it wasn't so big that it got clunky and ugly. But we also want to make sure that we address, obviously, all the right things. I will send it out tonight to the board.
Thank you.
All right, so this is just first reading. I'm sure everyone has not had time to go all the way through it. But are there any questions for Mr. Campitelli?
No.
Tonight? All right, seeing none, thank you. We'll see you next month at it. Item 11B is our meeting dates for fiscal year or school year.
Yes, so I submitted for you in the packet some potential meeting dates. And in those meeting dates, the one that I wanted to say, do you want to make it different? And that's definitely for John's sake as well, would be the October date. Because right now we have, it would bump October, and I put some asterisks in the agenda item itself. October 5th is off the second Monday of the month because the second Monday falls during fall break. The 5th is probably too early for John to get his reports done, in which case it would need to be the Monday after fall break, which would make it October 19th, which would make October and November super close together, but
Whatever works.
It's been the third, a couple years in a row, and that is a pinch, so I appreciate if you consider the 19th.
so you're,
John.
so in the proposal, the dates I proposed, and these run from now until the January of 2027 meeting, which is also proposed in there, so a year from now. So that would change the recommendation from October 5th to October 19th. And the other dates would be February 9, March 9, April 13, May 11, June 8, July 13, August 10, September 14, October 19, November 9, December 14th, and January 11 of 2027. It keeps us consistently on the second Monday of the month, 5 o'clock in this room, because we have to designate that annually where and when we meet, with the exception of that one date in October. And then as John needs a special meeting here or there for, budget revisions or things like that, then we would ask during a regular meeting to schedule a special meeting.
Any questions? Go for it.
I'll make the motion to approve the governing board meeting dates, times, locations for February 2026 to January 2026.
And I'll second that. Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Item 11C is the evaluation of the superintendent. I'm actually going to talk about this one a little bit. Historically, we have always just kind of got together in executive session and had thoughts and asked Cindy, our superintendent, whoever it was at the time, to give us some progress, some goals, et cetera, This year, just because of some, new board members and different things, I chose to put an evaluation packet together. That does not mean that once we get into the executive session that we have to use the evaluation packet.
However, what I am requesting from everyone is to take a look at it and then, thank you, and then go ahead and fill it out and bring it to next month's executive session meeting. And once in there, we can decide exactly how we're going to do the superintendent's
I love that.
evaluation.
Good job. Good job.
Gold star if you can't take
Would we like
So Cindy did do this.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I don't want the wide band. Do we have, would you prefer to have the executive session prior to the meeting or at the end of the meeting?
I'd like to have it with food.
I personally-
Either way.
Okay. That always makes me happy.
So it's kind of a catch-22. Before is good because we have a definitive time limit, but I actually prefer after so that we do not have a definitive time limit.
I like after. I like after too.
I agree.
After snacks sounds good. It's like.
I will bring something.
Yeah, we could do it.
We're fine with that.
Cheyenne will fix something. She'll fix something together for us. She won't have to make it herself. She just has lots of chickens and eggs.
I don't know that I want to know that. All right, then with that, good night all. See you next month. Thanks, everybody. She said.